Meeting in progress. Okay. So what I wanted to run through this evening was the process of turning a book which has gone to the printer as a print book, and it has gone to the printer from a bunch of InDesign files that were turned by me into a PDF file that went to the printer. And the printer is not we're talking about The Revenge of the Tyrants, right? I'm working on two different books at the same time, so excuse me if I get it mixed up with the titles, but Revenge of the Tyrants is the book we're talking about. It has been to the printer and it has been printed, and the book launch, I believe, next weekend. Yeah. And what we would normally do for any book launch is say at the book launch, then there is an ebook available. And I usually put it up fairly soon before the launch, and it can be done through Amazon Kindle as a pre-order with a release date of the physical launch. We've also got into the habit now of creating a print-on-demand book through Amazon, which we can set to be only available in certain territories like the States or Australia, anywhere with a sort of Scottish diaspora, where the postage costs are now so prohibitive that this sort of can be more than the book cost to the buyer. You know, the book can be cost £10 or something, and it costs £12 to post it to the Canada, about £20 to post it to the States. So it's a bit crazy. So print on demand means that you can buy it if you're an Amazon customer and you're on Amazon Prime, say in the States, you can buy it with free postage, and it's printed by Amazon in the States, and we never see it. We just get a diddy bit of money, and Amazon take everything as usual. So what I wanted to do was look at the InDesign files that we have for Revenge of the Tyrants, and just show you what, in principle, I would do to make an ebook. Now, I spoke to Isabel just now over dinner, and she said that she wasn't clear in her own mind, really, and in your minds, who was actually going to do this. If time was of the essence, it will have to be revert to me. But I think either of Anna or I think Anne-Marie, was it mentioned? Anyway, someone, I think it was Anne-Marie, might want to do it, but it will take time, and it involves quite a lot of toing and froing with me and with the software, because it's quite a tricky process. So we need to sort of, after this quick session, is think about whether one of you wants to do this process in its entirety, having me shown you how to do it in principle, or whether you say, well, that's interesting, but I haven't got the time, or we want to get it done and finished by Sunday, and I weigh quite a bit as well. So we'll just have to wait and see. Once you've seen what I do, you may say, oh, I don't want to touch that. That just sounds horrible. It's quite tricky. It's quite iterative. The beauty of this book is it doesn't have any images, which can cause quite a bit of grief with ebooks. How do you manage images and how to anchor them? And you have to do a sort of process using InDesign and the Kindle Previewer program. Amazon have a Kindle Previewer program, which you then create an ePub file, which is the standard for an ebook from the InDesign files. You load it to Previewer, and it shows you in a sort of mock-up of what it would look like on a purchaser's Kindle. Hopefully the same, emulating a phone as well. And you can change the Previewer skin to be either a iPad or a phone, and you can see what it looks like for the buyer and check that it actually is behaving itself. The tricky things are things like a table of contents. All ebooks we do have navigation in it, so that the purchaser can find their way around the book using bookmarks and the page number and the chapter headings. Because an ebook doesn't have pagination, so you can't remember I was at page 38. You can't dog it over and turn the page. You can't put a bookmark in it. It's an electronic book. So a navigation aid, like a table of contents, is almost compulsory with an ebook. And that's not something we usually do with fiction books, with printed fiction books. So we do it with printed non-fiction and technical books. But normally a standard, this book being a fiction book, doesn't have the book itself doesn't have a table of contents, but the ebook must have one. Okay, that's enough rabbiting on. I'm going to share screens. I'm going to show something about creating the files from scratch, and then I'm going to, just using Windows, and then I'm going to jump into InDesign. So I'm going to have to change screen share a couple of times. So let me just open my file, my Windows Explorer, and then I'll share the screen. This one. Okay. Okay, just got a Windows Explorer file here, and this is in my folder Ringwood Revenge, and there's some early bits and pieces rubbish. Don't worry about all this stuff, but I have folder here, the InDesign files, the InDesign documents that I used to create the PDF for the printer, and it's in separate sections. Virtually every book we do, it's not just one file. It's all the sort of sections of the book are done separately. That's because often different people do them. They come in different times. It's easier to repaginate it if it's broken down into sections. So you can see here, it's a bit out of order here, but we've got an acknowledgement section, a catalogue of books at the back, a dramatis personae who played. We asked the author of this book to, because there's so many characters in it, we asked her to give us a list of all the characters in it and who they were and what they did. So that was a DP file called DP, and then we had the front matter and then the main text, which, as you can see from the size of the files, the main text is the big file. Yeah, and then we would normally create a book file, an INDB book file, which pulls it all together. But because I've messed around with this, I've just dropped that book file at the moment, because all I want to do, I'm going to have to mess around with these files, and I don't want to destroy the ones that went to be the print copy. So what I want to do is copy them into a new folder for the ebook. And you can see here when I just drop back one level, I've got a ROTT, Revenge of the Tyrants ebook folder, which has got nothing in it at the moment. So I would, if any of you is going to do this, I would be sending you those files, and you would then create your own copy of those. Well, you take them off the email or whatever, and then use them to edit them to become the ebook. So what I'm going to do is just go back to there. We'll just select these, copy, go to this, go to ebook, and paste. And I should have, yeah, okay, so I've now got copies of all those things. And what I would do is just rename them. Acknowledgements, and I would just write ebook and Revenge of the Tyrants. Now, is it done? Is that done? So it's renamed them all. Oh dear. And selecting them all. Oh dear. There's no undo button on that, you know. I have to work it out. The catalog, what I was trying to say is that the catalog has images in it. I normally don't worry about the catalog in an ebook, but I'm just going to just open this to make sure I've got the right files now. Now I'm just going to, this will jump me straight back into InDesign, and you can't see that at the moment. I'm going to flop backwards and just make sure I've got the right ones. Okay, so that's acknowledgements ebook. That's fine. Sorry about this. Anyway, I'm having to rename these things. I have to open them to make sure which file it is. Yeah. So because I can't show you the two screens at the same time. So this one is the catalog, right? Okay. So number 2 is the catalog. This is a bit of a waste of your time. I'm sorry about this, but I have to do this. I'll make a complete mess of it. So that's catalog. This one, I think, was the DP one. Back to this one. So that's the deep. I hate Windows. This one is that's the title page. So 4 is the title page. Okay. Title page ebook. And then this big one, that's the main text because it's 14 megabytes. So that is definitely going to be the main text. Yeah, so I'll just rename this one before, rather than even opening it, because I know which file it is. Revenge of the Tyrants, text, ebook. That one's the catalog. I just rename that slightly, but I'm not going to use it in the ebook. So I've got the dramatis personae, the acknowledgements, text, and the title page. Right. Okay, so I'm going to close that. I'm going to stop the share. I have stopped the share. I'm going to open InDesign now. It's open. I'm going to share that screen and then we'll just deal with InDesign. Okay, let's move this zoom bar out of the way. Sorry about that. Just have to move it out of the way onto the other screen. I'm doing 2 screens here. That's why I keep looking over here. I'm looking at you guys in my laptop, and I've got a big monitor on my left. You're right. So that's why I'm staring at this screen. Okay, so this is InDesign. Those who hadn't seen it, it's a sort of standard desktop publishing subsystem. It's got Windows sort of a Windows type drop downs on the top and toolbars, various toolbars on the left and right. Yeah, looks a bit intimidating those who've never used it before, but it is actually quite intuitive. So what I want to do is open all those files that I've just renamed and just have them all open and just check that I'm happy with all the files. Yeah. So I'll just open file open. I've been working on this other book, Moot, but I'm not going to. It's obviously that's the last book I worked on in InDesign. So I've got to find. These are all the Ringwood books I ever worked on. Half my life has gone into this. I'll never get it back. Where are we? What book are we doing? Begins with R, isn't it? Revenge. That's it. Okay, so we've got an ebook folder all there. And I'm not going to do the catalog for the. I'll go back through that reason in a minute. I want those 4 documents to be in my book, my ePub. I'm going to open all those together, and they should all open there. So let's see back. This is the title page. Scroll up to the top of it. Okay, so this is a typical, those of you who've not seen an InDesign page, this is a typical layout of an InDesign page. It has a frame. This is the actual page, the physical paper page. If it was a print book, there's a frame, and then you've got all the wording in it like that. So that's the title page of the book, physical. You've got a copyright page, which comes next. This book, then it starts to go into whatever that book happens to look like. This happens to have got a dedication. And then we've left a blank page so that the story so far can start on a right page. Yeah. And then there's a sort of left page of that, and that finishes that document. And then the next bit would be the text, which should then start on that the left-hand page on this side here, in a print book. If I just go to the top of it, let's just check it's all here. Okay, so what she's got is this this extra page she's put in because it's part 2 of it, and then there's another blank page, so that the prologue then starts on the right-hand page again, and it's also got pagination in it as well, then page numbers. And this has then got 40 million pages of stuff right down to the bottom here, and that's page 390, and then there's a blank page which allows the acknowledgements to be on a right-hand page, which is just one page. So we have all the requisite material here, and I'll just go back to the start page, because we're now going to turn this into an ebook. And the first thing we need to do is create a book file, which we do for print books as well. And it needs to pull all those 4 files together into a book file. So these are the individual document files. They're called as you can see at the top here, INDD, which is InDesign document file. And we're going to create a book file, an InDesign book file, INDB. So I go to File, New Book. It's going to have to go into, I have to then find the folder. It's rot ebook. Oh, why did you do that? Rot ebook, come on. Okay, so we need to create a name for it, which is going to be INDB file. It's going to be called ROTTE book. And it comes up with this little blank box. Yeah. Let's move it out of the way here. And there's a plus sign here. This plus sign, as you can see, the little fly out thing says add documents. And I want rot. Where is it? Come on. Image. So I want the DP. I want the I want a Matthew one. Okay, so it's now put them in this. Can you see this all right? Yeah, little box here, but they're in the wrong order. That's not how the book works. The title page comes first, so you can just drag it up to the top. Yeah, the book text comes next, then the dramatis personae thing, and then the revenge acknowledgements. For reasons I will talk about later, I'm going to just click the style source as the top folder. Then I'm going to save it. Yeah, because I've done something now. I've now got a book file. So I've now got 4 files, 4 InDesign document files, and a title and a book file. And this little drop down here is where we eventually then click that, and we get this little drop down box, and it says export book to ePub. So in principle, that was all you would do. If all those files are correctly formatted for ePub, the last stage of it is to actually export it to ePub, and it turns all that book file and its 4 document files into a .epub file, which is what you would then load, or it would then get loaded to whatever the platform is, whether it's Kindle, Glassbox, other various. But you've got an EPUB file that is then can be used across to sell, basically, because that's the way we do it. But I'm not ready to do it yet. If I click that now, I would get an EPUB that wouldn't look very good, because we've got several things we need to do to make sure that it will work, and there's no point in doing it at this stage. But what we have to do when we're happy with what we do in the next 10 minutes, we will then export it to ePub. We'll then review it in Kindle Previewer, and we'll say, oh no, that doesn't look right, and have to go back to the InDesign files, fiddle around, create and export it again, put it in the preview, and check that what we did has worked. And it's an iterative process, and it can either be very quick, and you say, oh, I just got a couple of things that went wrong, and it's dead easy, or you could be there for hours. fiddling with things, especially if you've got images. Now you haven't got images here, so it's a little bit easier. Images cause a lot of grief with EPUB files, because basically you're trying to create a book. Instead of being a fixed format, it's got to be flowable. Yeah, you understand the concept of, so that when you're on a phone or any sort of device, iPad, tablet, that the text flows to whatever screen size you've got, whatever font size you want. If you're hard of sight, if your sight is poor, you want to have a bigger font. So the layout of the document as a PDF is not fixed at all. Lines can change, the font changes, or all sorts of things change. And so if you've got things that are in a fixed place relative to text, like an image, you've got to make sure it's anchored to that bit of text, otherwise it'll fly off everywhere and you won't see it. You've also got to think about pagination, because EPUB files aren't paginated in the same way that a print book is. There's no such concept of that. It's whatever the screen you've got is. And it will flow, the whole book will flow. But often when you're reading an EPUB book, you do actually want it to stop flowing at the end of a chapter and start the new chapter on a new page. It's annoying if it just suddenly at the bottom of the page it says chapter 6, and it's not. You need to have chapter 6 on a brand new screen, as it were. Yeah, which means you must, to do that, the EPUB must know that is a sort of an electronic page break at each chapter, and that's the most important thing to remember. And it does that. InDesign does that by looking at the paragraph style of here. So paragraph styles, whether you're not aware of it. If I click on this little button here, it'll tell you when I put my mouse cursor into any bit of text, it will tell you what style I'm using. And this one happens to be basic paragraph. I click on this one and it tells me it's chapter heading. And if I go to the text of the main text of the book, let's go up to the top, is out of the way, you will find that if I click on that, prologue, chapter heading. I scroll down to a next chapter. It's a long prologue. I did say to her, that's very long for a prologue. Yeah, we've got chapter 1 after 20 pages. Anyway, chapter heading. Okay, so this we can force the EPUB file to paginate electronically at every time it comes across chapter heading, which is there. And then this little subheading I've called chapter subheading, so I can ignore that for the moment, because that's what's important. And we must make sure that every chapter, when we see the text, let's go down to the next chapter. Let's just scroll down to the next one and check. Now, I've done this book, so I have done this in advance, but you might find that in the future, if you're doing one of these things, that the person who did it wasn't completely assiduous in actually doing chapter heading for every chapter heading, because you could fix that in PDF. You could just turn that into Calibri Bold 14, and it would print fine. You could leave it in the basic style with just override it, but then the ebook wouldn't work. So your first job is to go through and make sure that the chapter heading style is applied to all chapters, and then it will page break properly. So what we're going to do is, before we do any table of contents, I'm going to create the ebook, because I'm fairly comfortable with this, because I've done it myself. And I did one other thing which you will probably which won't make sense at the moment, but it will make sense when you see it. To get the spacing between a chapter heading and this subheading, and between the subheading and the text, normally, if you were just typing, you would just put carriage return. You did it return, 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 wouldn't you? Yeah. If you just wanted a space here, you just do. Yeah. But you don't do that in InDesign. You don't do it in ePub, because ePubs ignore those floating paragraph markers and they just close it up completely. So what we have to do at the end of this thing, we have to make sure that there's a thing called space after. You can see here this subheading here. It's subheading style, and there's a space after of 5 millimeters. And on the chapter heading style, I think I've got a space after of 10. Yeah, that's fairly standard. So instead of having the white space is generated by the chapter heading style and its space after. So you will find if you didn't do that, you would find if you just did that with carriage returns after prologue, you'd find that the prologue word and the Byzantine dungeon sentence would just be slammed next to each other like that, not a space. So it wouldn't look like the PDF, and it would look crap, basically. So that's why you have to make sure that you, so if the document you get from the previous copy editor that did the print has got lots of spaces in like that, you'd have to get rid of them and use space after. This probably has some, let's just see where there's a star here. I mean, we don't, yeah, so here she wanted a space between this bit of text and this sort of letter. Can you see I've got a sort of letter here that she's used, and I've created a space by putting 3 millimeters of white space in. And this star, which is often used in copy editing to signify some sort of scene change, it's not as big as a chapter break. It's sort of like a scene change within a chapter. Yeah. Rather than putting carriage returns in here to create the space, I've got a chapter style called star with 3 millimeters of space above and before it and after it. So it creates this thing like that. It'll all make sense in a second when I show you what we've done, what it looks like as an EPUB file. And the same thing here, that can come out as well. That's not going to happen. Right, so without further ado, I will create, I'm just going to save these documents. I've no idea how this one's going to come out, by the way. This is her list of principal characters. Let's just turn off the, this is actually a table, so it'll be interesting to see how this comes out in the EPUB, how EPUB treats that. That should be chapter heading. Yes, that's chapter heading, so that's going to probably be okay. Right, let's just save that file. Save. If there's a little star next to it, it means it's got edits that you have done or I have done, but I haven't actually saved them. So all the ones with a star, I'm just going to make sure I click on it and save them. Save. So my 4 documents are saved, and I've got my book file here, and that's already saved. Okay, let's just do an EPUB and just show you what it does, and then we'll do a table of contents as a sort of first iteration. So export book to EPUB. And the first thing it says is what site type, and it says EPUB fixed layout, or if I drop down EPUB flowable. And you never want the fixed layout. You always want the reflowable. Oh God, this is the last file I use, so I'll get it into something else. What was it? Rot ebook. Okay, so it's rot ebook.epub is what we're going to get. We're going to show it as a reflowable EPUB, and it's going to be in the folder. Save. Right. So this is the table, or the sort of drop down box that's important to get it right. So there is an old version of EPUB, a format of EPUB that we don't use. It's not for legacy devices. We virtually have no problems now. We're using EPUB version 3. We don't want to cover on this because when we submit a book, an EPUB to Amazon, we have to submit the EPUB file and the cover separately. But some other vendor platforms want the cover in the EPUB file. So I'm doing this mainly for Amazon Kindle, and so I don't want a cover file, an image, or to use the first page. I just want none. Now we don't have a table of contents yet, because we haven't got one yet. So I'm going to leave that blank for the moment. So we'll have to come back and we'll have to tell it when we've created a table of contents file. I need to come back and tell it what it's called. But the important thing here now is split the document. This is the splitting into sort of electronic pages, right? And I've clicked tick, and then it's asking me what style do I want, and It'll be no surprise to you that it wants chapter heading. We've defined chapter heading as our page breaker for the ebook. So that's where I put that there. That's what basically is the most important thing. So this page, this first drop down, when you start to save it as an EPUB, is the most important. No cover. You will need to specify the table of contents in a minute, and you need to put your chapter heading or whatever you've used in the book. Some people just call it heading or chapters heading, whatever it's called in the book, and split it on it. Now, we don't need to worry about some of this stuff, and you don't need to worry about objects because you haven't got any objects. And the viewing apps, which means it's going to automatically jump into Kindle Previewer version 3, which probably means I need to change screens for when it's going to create an EPUB and then automatically open it in Kindle Previewer. When it does that, I will ask you whether you can see it. If you can't, I'll have to change screens. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to here. This is the first page, remember? And then I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to go off and do something, and it might find some errors. It's going off thinking now. And it's doing it. You can see the little window. And as far as I can see, it hasn't come up with any problems. And here, now, can you see this at all? This Kindle Previewer screen? No, right, okay. I thought it would be the case. Let me just change screens to this one. You can see that now. You download this from Amazon, it's free. You can download that yourself. You can, and if you haven't got it linked to InDesign, you could just go to File up here in the top left-hand corner, File, Open, just like any other application. So but I've just done it automatically because I spend a lot of time iterating through these things. It's easier to have it embedded in, so you just go flip, flip, flip. Because quite often you have to do this. You may have to do this several times once you realize it doesn't look right. So it's going off, doing its thing, enhancing your book for easy reading, blah, 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 blah. It can take a few minutes. I didn't quite finish my wine with my dinner, so excuse me a second. Only doing InDesign with a glass of wine, I must admit. What I'm giving you is the sort of experience that I've gained over many years of doing this, and a lot of it I had to sort of learn from scratch. But I've done about 30 or 40 ebooks in the last 5 years or so, including some very complicated ones with images, with some very complicated ones with embedded videos. So yeah, it's becoming this and audiobooks are becoming the sort of the mainstay of publishing these days. We sell more ebooks than we sell print books. So getting this right is a critical part of the publishing industry for those of you interested in this part of the industry. It's not for everybody, but I thought we'd give you a flavor of it. You may decide, oh God, I don't want to do this, ever touch that thing. But it's important that you know what goes on. It is a core part of the technical side of publishing, the production of a decent looking ebook. And the software's improved dramatically over the last few years. So it's going to do something now. Here we go. It's going to emulate what the ebook will look like. Yeah. Okay. So this is assuming you've got a Kindle reader in portrait mode. Yeah. Is that coming up? You see that? Yeah. Okay. So you can then use these buttons. I think you probably use the cursor. Let's just use the buttons here. Okay, so because I've used the chapter heading, even when there isn't a chapter heading, I have a paragraph break in here with chapter heading embedded in it, so that it breaks there. That word dedication was in chapter heading style, so it's come to a new page. The story so far was a chapter heading style. Yeah. And then part 2, prologue, again, chapter heading style was there. So it's a new page, and it just goes through here. Now, if I wanted to change the font size, yeah. So it's just emulating. If you were a sort of poor sighted reader, then you might do it like that. Yeah. It's now going away, and it'll do. It's taking its time now because I've asked it to do something quite difficult. Right. Okay. So you can see there, it's going through the book in that sort of format. So it sort of looks like it's working. I'll go back to the default, which I think was 4. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just go on and look at a couple of other things. Just check to the next. I want to see it does page break at chapter 1. Yeah, remember it was that long prologue, and it should have gone. And you see the star. Remember I showed you about the star. It's maintained the spaces. If I just put carriage returns after the word revenge, and then put the star and then some carriage returns before it got to Jean de Grely, it would have just, the star would have been squashed into the text with no space, no white space. But by putting in the 3 millimeters each side of the star, it's maintained and retained the spacing that I wanted. Okay, and there's chapter 1. So it has actually jumped to the new page for chapter 1. Just check chapter 2. There we go. So it looks like it's working. Yeah, we don't have a table of contents. It's just because it's just got these folders in it, and that's all it's used as its contents. So we do need to go back now and do the table of contents, and then we're pretty much done. This book, because I copy edited it as a print book by doing the chapter heading style right, by putting in the spacing without the carriage returns, I've sort of made my life easier for the ebook. So I'm not surprised it's quite good because I work that way. So what we'll do is we'll close this and go back and do a table of contents, and then we'll just see it again, and then I'll leave you in peace to have the rest of your evening and me. So I'm going to close this, which will stop the screen share, and then go back to InDesign screen share. Okay, InDesign window again. Yeah. So I go back to the title page because I'm going to put a table of contents in the top document where I put this style page, where I put this style source. If I don't put the style source there, I stick a table of contents in here, but I leave that there or something, it doesn't work. That took me ages to find that out. Why? But it needs to be there. Also in this title page, which is here, you can go into file info and put a lot of what we call metadata in it, which is quite good for searching. So you can put keywords and things in here, and the blurb, and all sorts of things in here. So it's quite important that the title page also has extra information which we have to put in here. We can put in some keywords, all that sort of stuff, which is all helping people find the book on the internet. So that's one thing, and also this is where the table of contents needs to be. So actually, I'm going to stick it in here. So I'm going to create a box. There's Isabel.
Oh, just came to say hello. Right, I'll go.
You go. Right.
I'm going out.
All right.
Is it going okay?
Well, they haven't run away.
They've not run away. It's okay. Bye.
See you later. Right. So to do a table of contents very quickly, we go to layout, table of contents, and I'm going to call it, on the book it will say contents, and I'm going to make sure it's the chapter heading style. Don't worry about this at the moment. Now the paragraph style I want in the table of contents, all I want to do is find the chapter heading style. That's all that needs to be in it. So I'm going to put chapter heading here, add, stick it over there, and I'm going to put it as basic paragraph, and I don't want any page numbers on it. if you get round to doing an ebook and that's what you want to do, I will work this through with you. I'm just showing you quickly what you need to do. I don't expect you to remember it or because it's quite techy, but I need to include the book documents. It's important. So these are the things we need. We need to have the contents written in the style of the chapter heading. We need to have the chapter headings listed, but in the style of basic paragraph. We need to have no page numbers because there isn't such a thing as a page number in an ebook. If it was a print book, you would then have the page numbers in against each chapter, which is what you want. You want chapter 6, page 8, whatever. Yeah. I'm not replacing existing table because I haven't got one yet. And I usually take this one because if I don't, it comes up with error messages. But don't even ask me what it means. And I'm going to hit OK here and just see what happens. Okay, so I've got a little what's called a loaded cursor, and I'm going to stick it there. And da-da, it has worked. Yeah, so I've got a contents title. And these are all the words in the document that have chapter heading as their style. Yeah, it's quite a good check that I actually have every chapter in it, because once upon a time I found 2 chapter 32s and no chapter 33, because the author and the editors and the proofreaders had just not noticed it. It's not until you electronically try and do it you realize, oh gosh, that was a bit odd. Okay, so we've got that all looks pretty good. That's because when I did the copy editing in this book, I made sure it was going to be okay. But you might, if you're picking up somebody else's work, if you weren't the copy editor, but you're the ebook maker, you might find this is a right guddle, and you might have to do some, they may have fiddled it to make it look as a good PDF, but not as a good ebook. Ebook has to be perfect in terms of all that stuff. So that's actually okay. Okay, so we'll save that document. Probably save the book. Yeah. And because it's repaginated, we have to save all these things again as well. It always wants to do that. It sort of adjusts because I probably added it. Anyway, it's just save text. So always a good idea to save things. If you see a star next to a document, just save it. You don't want to lose what you've done. Also, down at the bottom here, you can see a little green traffic light. It's telling me there's no errors. So if you've got some errors here, you might want to think about what the error is and what you can do. In the drop-down box here, there's a thing called pre-flight. Yeah, pre-flight is a sort of like an airplane flying, and so check if everything's okay. So I'm actually going to hit pre-flight book here. This is just before we go anywhere. Pre-flight the whole book. I'll press pre-flight and you'll see what happens. Okay, so every document's got a green light. Good. You've also got a little drop-down box and you can actually get a pre-flight panel. And if there were errors, let's move this over here. If there were errors, they would list them here. If there were any reds, they would list them here with a hyperlink to the page where the error was. So if you find so it's always good to make sure you've got everything green and you haven't got any reds. There may be something that InDesign doesn't like that you've done. Quite often it's when the text doesn't get stuck and doesn't flow into the next box, and it's called preset text, and you get a little error. You get an error message that you've got text that is hiding somewhere, which is really bad. You do not want that. Maybe the one book.
I was on that point. So my question for that point, so is it mostly just like programming issues, or would they pick up like spelling or anything like that?
No, it's not. No, the pre-flight isn't about spelling. Pre-flight is more to do with technical issues, like you've got a frame. These are called frames, and you've got a frame that hasn't got any text in it and you'll get an error, a little red error message down here saying there's text after this, but it's not on the next page. It's hiding somewhere.
Okay,
and it's very important that if you get this, it's called overset text, and if you get an overset text error message here on the pre-flight, you must fix it.
So it's more about like the layout of the text in the program itself.
Yes, it's not. I mean, this is actually doing a spell check here. You can see it's got the red underlines. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not so that this pre-flight isn't about spell checks.
That won't pick that up. Okay.
No, that's
cool.
You pick that up through the. I mean, if you I mean, you're hoping that by the time you get to ebook, that all the spell check
Right.
type grammar stuff has been done. You're not there to do that. You're just assuming. I mean, because the Windows and the InDesign spell checks aren't going to pick up every word in these sorts of books. Byzantines, Raymond de Broise, that's not a standard spelling of anything. So that's why it's still red. But if you say something, if you say something obvious, I mean, the problems is that often the problems come up because the text was written in UK English and the spell checkers US. So you get sort of underlined, oh, that's recognized with a Z, and all that sort of thing. Okay, so the proof lights are okay. I'm happy with that. I've done my table of contents. It looks okay. So I'll now go and try the book again. Yeah, so this is going back to the book drop down, doing export book to EPUB again. And I'm going to call it that. This is where you need to make sure you don't do a fixed layout, because it always gives you that as the default. I don't want it to be. I always said that was always bad. Right, and I'm going to do it as that. It'll probably say, hey, you've done that already. Do you want it to replace it? And you're going to say yes. Right now, we need to change the table of contents to the multi-level TOC style, which is table of contents style, which we have just done. Yeah. And the TOC by default. Right. So all I had to do is just change that drop down from file name to multi-level. And hopefully it will do what I've just asked it to do, put a table of contents in the previewer, and when the people buy the book, it will have a table of contents navigation bar for them. So when it drops back into preview, I will change the screen share. Yeah, I'll wait till it starts it. It started on me, so I will stop the share. Go to share screen again. Wait. It's a very multitask usually, so I'll wait for that to do that. I'll do something else with my phone, or I'm gonna walk. Did you see the little box in it? The book, it says book conversion to me. You can see, no, it's just when it came to screen share, it had it as a separate screen. It's quite a long book, which is why it takes a wee while. If it's got images, it takes even longer. You definitely need to go off for a walk and make a cup of tea or coffee or something. Because if it's got images, it has to process each time. It can take a couple of 2 or 3 minutes, even 5 minutes to do this, and it depends on your internet speed as well. I'm zooming and I'm on an internet connection in a remote Scottish island at the moment. So.
Can I ask while we're waiting for it to load? So on the original InDesign, I see that the contents had each paragraph had indents, but in the initial Kindle preview, the paragraphs didn't have indents. Would that also be?
You're right. It does. It has but it seems to ignore it slightly, and just it has a little bit of indent. We'll see in a minute. It actually has a small indent. It's just the way that the font and the translation process works. It doesn't. There's an indent of 5 millimeters set on the InDesign file, and as you say, it doesn't seem to show it so well. We'll look at it in a second. You're right.
I was wondering if that's kind of like the spacing between headings, where it's like a consistent set thing that you have to do.
Well, I've left it exactly
if the copy editor didn't fix it right or something.
I've left it exactly as we had it in the print file, which is a 5 millimeter indent. on the paragraph, and we'll see what just see what it does. Have a look at that. Does it come up? Yes, you can see it now, yeah? Yep. And you can see here on the left-hand bar, there is a table of contents with all the chapter headings now, yeah? And if I actually click on one, yeah, so it jumped to chapter 3. You're right. So yes, this indent. Yeah, it's hard to put. I thought it put a minute, but it's put none in it at all. It's actually, it has changed the font style because I didn't hyphenate it either. So it's these are the sort of annoying things that in EPUBs do. Yeah. You may find that's acceptable because we justified it. Look, can you see it? Oh, you can't see it, but the text was justified with a 5mm indent, and it hasn't done that. It's not justified it. It's hyphenated it. You may say, well, I can't be bothered to fix that. It's just because I don't know. You could change the font. You could mess around with it. But basically, it's done what it wants to do. And it's ignored things, like it ignores the paragraph markers. But I thought that was important that we fix that. And it does it, and it does pick up the space before and the space after. What's annoying is it's not picking up the style of the of that. Have a look at that. I'll check it out. I'll have a think about that. Yeah, I'm usually not worried too much about it because it's sort of. But you're right. I'm sure some of the other books we have done it has worked, but we'll have to. Perhaps it depends on what the original proofreader and copy editor put here, because they used a basic paragraph, and maybe that we need to edit that basic paragraph better. And I'll have a look at that, but I won't bore you with that right now. But I will take on your point, Anne-Marie, and have a look at it myself, because it's not right. There should be an indent, and it shouldn't be hyphenated. Not that it matters too much, because it's an EPUB. It's not a physical book, so no one's actually seeing it on a table in a bookshop. Yeah, where the look and feel of exactly is what you want. People are going to buy this without looking at it. They're going to buy it anyway. As long as it's readable, people are going to say that's okay. But we could make it more readable, I guess, by looking at that, because I think you're right. There should be an indent here between these. I mean, to me, it's readable.
Yeah, and some book styles don't include the indent. I was just curious. Yeah, but
sure. But we have a
interesting.
debate. We always debate within Ringwood. Should we have an indent and no space between paragraphs, or no indent and a space between paragraphs? You don't need both, I don't think, because that's sort of a bit crazy. But what we could do, if it was important to this ebook, what we could do is change the style of the normal font, normal text, to have a 1mm gap between paragraphs, and that I would hope that it would honor it. I don't want to waste too much time doing that tonight, but I will play around with it. And if one of you is going to actually do this, but it's a good tip, good shout. Usually I just get to this stage and think, thank God it works. And the navigation works. Yeah. So we've got, yeah. So the list of, I wanted to see what that table looked like. Weird. I don't know what this is. Probably means there's more below it. Right. Well, again, this is the sort of thing I would have to go and look at. Is that what I wanted? It was a table. Is that how I want it to look in an ebook? What happens if you increase the font size to something? Still readable, isn't it? It still kept the line breaks, right? Struggling to move to the next page. Okay, so it kind of works, but I don't know what that means. Why did I press it? Is it actually a hyperlink? Never seen it before. Oh. Ooh. Put it all on one page or something, isn't it? Something to look at. I've never really dealt with a table before in an ebook, so it's something. Oh, it's turned it into a sort of scrollable image. And that X means you can close it. Okay, well, fine. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'll close that. So that would produce an EPUB file, which we could then load to, and I can go through that on another session with those that get that far, how you load it into Kindle, and also how you create a print-on-demand version from it as well. But we've been nearly an hour, have we? That's enough for the moment. So it gives you a flavour for that. You could talk to Isabel about timing and whether you want who wants to do it. I've just my brief tonight was just to go through the process with that book that has to be done by allegedly by Sunday. So it's talk to Isabel, email her, and then she can let me know what's happening, whether that's enough for you guys at this stage, and the only way you can get it done quickly is for me to do it, or whether one of you is going to do it in the time frame, and work with me sort of toing and froing with sort of questions between now and Sunday. But I'm going to be up a mountain Friday and Saturday, hopefully in Aviemore. I'm traveling on Wednesday on a ferry, so time's quite tight, and it would so we'll leave it at that. Nice seeing you guys.
Thank you so much. This
All
was
right.
really informative. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. See you later.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.